everybody, it's Stophers, and we're back again with always the same blue sky. Sorry, I don't know, I had a brain fart for a second. But yeah, so we're back, and right now we're at the Moo Moo Shack. We're back at the Moo Moo Shack. I'm sorry, those cows, mermaid cows, are pretty fucking legit. Okay, anyway. Alright, so we're here, we're having a milkshake, and things are going pretty swimmingly. Get it? Swimmingly? Because, whatever. Okay. As there's only a few minutes to closing time, there is only one table still set up. Luckily, it gave us a spectacular view of the setting sun over the rolling tide. Kira seemed quietly thrilled with her Rocky Road milkshake, which looked bigger than her head. It does look bigger than her head. She dived in pretty much as soon as we sat down and drank the whole thing in around 30 seconds. Wow. I'd started to compete with her after she'd taken a couple of glugs, but it didn't go very well as brain freeze quickly set in. Oh, you need more practice, I'm afraid. I try and come here most days if I can. It seems to make the school day pass quicker. Here, I saved you a bit. I still had brain freeze, but soldiered through so as not to lose face. Yes, that's something I would totally do. Really good, isn't it? I could sit here all day watching the sea. A lot of people would find that mundane, but they wouldn't if they focused on the right things. She blinked that the breeze caught her hair. It whistled slightly as it traveled through the discordant buildings and past us. Her eyes followed it and lingered in the direction it left. Without turning back, she said in a half-whispered tone, "I should go." She leant over, kissed me on the cheek, and left. Ah! Her head swayed as she disappeared into the distance. Yo, I got a kiss cheek. Whatever. Kiss on the cheek? Yeah, kiss on the cheek. I decided to go back into town as I'd seen something that caught my eye. Whoa. I've been moved around my whole life, rarely spending more than a few months in one school. People usually react to this fact with pity, not necessarily expressing it vocally, but it's there, in their eyes. This has always made little sense to me, though. I know no different. It's all I've ever known. It's my life. School has always been a place of purpose to me. I'm naturally inquisitive and have strong desire to widen my pool of knowledge. That's why I've always secured a place in the local school before agreeing to relocate. For the first time I could remember, a school had become more than a place of learning for me, and for once I was eager to stay put. Then again, it's hard not to be charmed by this place. The school is situated on top of the end of a peninsula, or at the end of a peninsula, and no matter where you are, you can hear the constant lapping of the docile waves on the beach not far below. Teachers and pupils work much in the same way as any other school I've attended, yet it's all sheathed in a potent, comforting, acquiescent atmosphere, which makes it all seem entirely different, special. Jeez Louise, this vocab is fucking godlike. I've been attending for weeks now and had built up some acquaintances in the process, which helped the days pass quicker. But the one person that I really cared for it seemed cold, almost like she was trying to avoid me, which is strange, as she was the exact opposite outside of the establishment. We spent most of our time after school together, in fact. It had become an unspoken rule that we met in the milkshake parlor. I wanted to call it Moo Moo Shake so bad. Just last night, as planned, we went crab fishing. Sat at the end of the harbor, we talked until the sun went down. For some reason, whenever I caught her eye in the classroom, she always looked away. Kira had been acting weird all day. She was usually so cheerful and full of life, but today she almost seemed absent. She had been looking out the window and fiddling with her pen all lesson, which is why it came as no surprise when she got up and walked out towards the end. I tried to ignore this and concentrate on what the teacher was saying. Poseidon's greatest temple resided in Atlantis, so when Atlantis was destroyed, Poseidon left his planet and... What? What was on Kira's mind? What was making her unhappy? Could she have family problems? Maybe I was just projecting. Then again, I couldn't recall her ever mentioning her family before. It seemed like a waste of time sitting there contemplating what was running through her mind, instead of just asking her. As Kira had done a few minutes before, I left the room without a word. I had a feeling I knew where Kira would be. Oh. I found Kira sat on a collection of large, dark, uneven rocks, which were located at the end of the peninsula beneath the school. They were only accessible at a very limited period each day and weren't easy to reach, but your reward was privacy and a chance to escape the school above, which was out of view due to the rocky area being a little indented into the land. I found Kira sitting there watching the sea massage everything around her, small amounts of spray occasionally spitting in her face, or her feet rather. The sky was gray and it looked like a storm could be coming, but it wasn't too cold yet. She briefly looked up and smiled at me, acknowledging my presence as I sat on the rock next to her. I rolled up the bottom of my trousers and trousers, so English. I rolled the bottom of my trousers to prevent them from getting wet, pulled my leg towards me, rested my head on my folded arms, and watched the struggling water with her. Even though nothing had been resolved, my head quickly cleared while sitting there. After a few minutes, Kira softly said, "I didn't know you had a tattoo. I like it." Is there a camera? What is happening? No one knows. What's wrong, Kira? It's a giant squid, isn't it? This caught me off guard. Most people think it's a regular squid. I'm impressed you know the difference. She looked taken aback. Well, sorry, dude. It's obvious from the shape of the caudal fin, and of course its eye. I thought they only had like one eye. Kira, what's wrong? I repeated. She said nothing for a minute. Is it acceptable to be selfish? People are inherently selfish, so therefore it is unfair to be annoyed by selfish behavior. I took a minute to myself. It's a part of human psyche, something that can't be helped. Just because something gravitates more easily towards a certain behavior doesn't make it right. I don't know. I want to go with the second one because, like, you know, if you're gonna be a dick, you're gonna be a fucking dick, and it isn't whether whatever. But it's not as black and white as that. For example, the only reason you're here looking out for me is in hopes that I do the same for you. If I said right now that I care nothing for you and I'll never speak to you again, would you still be here? Her tone was emotionless. I took something out of my pocket before I answered. If you really mean that, then no, I wouldn't. Well, yeah, fuck, I'd still hang out. Fuck it, dude. I said, placing a bracelet I bought that first day in her hand. This is to say thank you for showing me around and making me feel welcome. I got up to leave. Kira grabbed my hand, so I turned around and met her eyes. They were full of sincerity. I believe you. I took her other hand and hoisted her up. We head back now and we can make the next class. She smiled warmly, but for some reason, it just incited pity. She didn't let go of my hand until we reached the school. We went into town that evening. It was quite late, yet the illuminated stained glass bathed the town in a faint rainbow. We were too absorbed in our debate to pay attention to where we were going. As a result, we ended up in an unfamiliar area, but we didn't take notice until... Ow. Kira stopped. Do you hear that? No. I hadn't heard anything. I was too deeply engrossed in our conversation. No, what is it? I looked around. Where are we, Kira? Kira shrugged, about to speak. See, I heard it the first time, damn it, okay? Now I feel like a fool. Oh, hopefully she doesn't mean the owl, because then I would just feel like a jerk. Kira looked at me intent in her eyes. I nodded and we followed his call through a hidden side street. Oh, our eyes are nuts. We were greeted by a spectacular courtyard. The whole area was roofed with vines and had an air of being forgotten. The ancient well took center stage, with the star being an ornate birdcage. It hung from the roof, shimmering brilliantly in the moonlight. Kira walked over somberly to investigate. Its door was wide open. Strange. Hey, look, there are all kinds of seeds in here, Kira said, sipping a few through her fingers. I sat on the well next to her. Owls don't eat seeds, do they? And the plot thickens. Oh man! Kira sat next to me and we stayed silent for a minute, giving ourselves time to acclimatize to the mysterious courtyard. It had the air of a grand cathedral. Kira's dulcet tone was welcome addition as she continued our previous interrupted conversation. Large portions of moonlight were blocked by the vines above, imprinting a dense pattern of fine leaves on Kira's face that refused to fully mesh with her as she enthusiastically noted her history lesson with hand movements. She talked about the fabled egalitarian society that founded and lived harmoniously in the ancient town before the rest of the world brought its influence. It sounded truly idyllic, although Kira must have invested a lot of time in studying the day-to-day life and talked about it enthusiastically. She didn't sound fully convinced. If this had island never had contact with the outside world, do you think things could have been continued in that way? I think I might have said this said island never had contact. Whatever. I asked, jumping out of her train of thought. Well, in theory that'd be great, but most people aren't good through and through, as I'm sure you know, traveling as much as you have. Realistically, it was inevitable. The islanders just blamed others so they don't have to take responsibility for their own mistakes. It's human nature. I guess there can never be real harmony in human society. There will always be destruction until there is nothing left to destroy. Yeah, I kind of agree, actually. It used to shock me, returning years later to places I've once lived. Sometimes it took me a while to realize, but every single place, without fail, I changed, and never for the better. In fact, it's places that see the most economic growth that tend to lose the most. Oh, yeah, well. Kira looked up in the moon, her hands grasped together and her eyes glinting as a gentle breeze ruffled through the leaves above. Barely audible, almost like it was part of an exhaled breath. I'm sure I heard Kira say, "It was always inevitable." Oh, man. Eyes are crazy. After finishing training with the martial arts club, I decided to look for Kira. I was concerned that she was stopped and watched for a few minutes, her way of supporting me, as she stopped and watched. Training was outside the entrance of the school, so I would have seen Kira leave, meaning she must still have been inside. I checked all the obvious places, but there was no sign of her anywhere. I leaned against the wall of our classroom as I watched the setting sun through the full-length windows, wondering where to go from here. A seagull, silhouetted against the sun, flew past to join his friends on the roof. Then it hit me. I hadn't tried the roof. The school had a flat roof, so it made sense that you'd be able to go up there. And sure enough, a few corridors later, I found a staircase. There was a key already in the lock, and the door was ajar. I cautiously nudged it open and saw her there. Kira was standing 10 meters or so in front of me, leaning against the rail and watching the picturesque sunset as I had done moments before, just below her. Her hair was tousled forcibly by the wind, as if trying to keep dying embers alight. I was cut short. I like the seagull. He cool. The gully. The gully. The seagull I'd tracked perched loudly on the rail by her side. Taken by surprise, Kira jolted to look, tears flying off her face as she did so. Her eyes were distant and desperate. God knew I wanted to be, but my heart told me it wasn't my place to intervene. That I was never meant to be part of this elegy, although it pained me, so I quietly left. I received a call later that day. You'll be moved within the week. Make sure you're ready to leave at any time. That's a bummer. Oh, hey. I spotted her instantly leaning against a lamppost shadowed by the shade of a nearby tree. Wearing a pale, virtually see-through dress, I was glad she hadn't noticed me as I needed a minute to adjust. Yeah, me too. Not because of the dress or like whatever, but it's because, you know, her hand on the hip thing. Okay. Kira was oblivious to the world, focused completely on gentle lapping waves. She sheepishly looked up in my direction as I approached her. "Oh, hey," she said excitedly as she leapt forward and hugged me. That wasn't very excitingly. It could have been my imagination, but I could swear that as her head passed mine, at the edge of my vision, I saw her expression go blank. "So happy you're here. I've been looking forward to this for a while." We found a secluded spot under a tree. I laid out the blanket along with the food we bought in town the day before. We sat talking about life, about everything and nothing. I decided not to tell her I wasn't going to be around for much longer. I knew it was selfish, but I was genuinely happy. A rare emotion that I had to cling on to just a little longer. Unfortunately for me, she was definitely a rambler, and I loved listening to her. Her every word oozed character and significance, but at the same time was unprovocative and somehow soothing. I wasn't really thinking about it much. I was just basking in the moment. But I suppose if I had been, I would have been working out a way to make those days last forever. "Let's go swimming," Kira said, removing her dress. I casually rooted through the picnic basket, not wanting her to see my flushed face. "Don't worry about that, let's go." She exclaimed as she gestured towards the ocean. "Meekly do as you're told. Throw the bread roll and leg it to the water. Throw down the bread. Yeah, fuck it, let's go." Horatio, I shouted as I passed her, eyes focused on the ocean. The blazing sun sparked off the sand and created a runway to the cool, refreshing water. I looked over my shoulder as I reached the sea, not taking into account the sand's new, saturated consistency. Fresh. My foot slid, and as a result, I found myself part submerged in the shallow water. I heard splashes approaching excitedly from the side. I looked up shamelessly toward the source to find Kira coughing wildly. Game on. With my face unchanged and using the sea to hide my execution, I dislodged her ankle. We traded expressions as I chuckled as she frantically wobbled, trying desperately not to fall. She failed and fell right on top of me. man. There was a thin layer of water between us, and I could feel her body pressed against mine. My throat had tightened, resulting in an audible gulp. Kira flushed and looked away. I'm sorry, this is like, I'm getting flustered right now. I've never seen Kira embarrassed before. I've never even considered it a possibility. Right. I had enough. This wasn't her. I was playfully pushed her off me. She looked over at me, feigning anger. I got up and offered my hand. She used to point back into the water. This time I looked at her, disgruntledly. Kira closed her eyes and stuck out her tongue. This led to a full-blown play fight, which I maintain to this day. I let her win. Now that our bodies had been forcefully adjusted to their new surroundings, we decided to swim along the coast. We followed the cliff, stopping at little coves to see if there were any brightly colored fish we hadn't previously encountered. I'd swum in many different areas of the Mediterranean, but none had anywhere near as broad a range of aquatic life as here. It was truly stunning. In one of those larger coves, I noticed a hole at the bottom of the cliff face, only partially exposed above the water. Hey, check this out. Kira looked over at me, puzzled. Looks like this could lead somewhere. I elaborated as she swam over. Elaborated. Kira dunked her head under the water. It's dark, but I see a light at the end. There should be enough room to come up for air if we need to. I'm going for it. Fancy joining me? Of course. Kira held out her hand, which I accepted. And on 3, we dived just below the surface. So, like, in truth, I'm actually, like, terrified of water and... Well, not really terrified of water, but I can't swim, so... Drowning sucks as a possibility. So, we're gonna end the episode here. I like where this is going. It's kind of, like, stressing me out now because, you know... main character's leaving in a couple weeks, and I don't know what's gonna happen, so... Alright, I'll see you guys later. Hey everyone, it's Stophers, and thanks again for watching part 2 of Always the Same Blue Sky. So, yeah, thanks for getting, beachy, and, I don't know, I think we're about to round out the end of the story, so, I guess stay tuned. If you like what you saw, please subscribe, please comment, and please hang out, and I'll see you guys later. Peace!